Okay, with Katherine Connor Duff, she is the writer, she is the director, she is the star of the film. She's very busy. The SLATE is the film. I love this film because it's got a very unique take on it. It's simple in its theory, but there's a lot. Obviously, it's all about the script, it's all about the acting, and it's even the voiceover. I think it's John Cody who played Lucas. But
Yeah.
really, it's about this, this actor who is you. Who is basically doing a slate, which you've probably done hundreds of times. And it can be
Mhm.
agonizing because you don't know where it's going to go. It's going to go into this vortex that hopefully someone's going to see or someone's not going to see, and you're going to pour your heart and soul out there. And it's like it's such a weird kind of messed up industry that we my not you. I'm saying this, not you. And that we work in that basically that you have to do this, and you're forced to do this, and then a relationship problem conflict occurs because of it, and it's so well done because we totally get it. We totally get both sides of the story, of course, but you're the one that we see front and center in the film, so I love it. I got to ask you right away, is this a personal film? Did this happen? Is this where the idea came from?
Yes. I was actually going through my self-tape camera, which is a separate camera that I have, and I was going through and I was deleting old self-tapes, and I came across an argument that had been accidentally recorded between me and an ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
It was about 10 minutes long, and I watched it, and it was pretty traumatic to see. I'm not gonna lie, I did not know that it was recorded. And I thought to myself in that moment, which is very me, I thought, wow, that is terrible that I experienced that. That should be a movie. So I decided to rewrite the scenario and but use the scenario, and that's where the film came from. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's found footage relationship drama.
Yes, exactly.
So basically, so what, like, do you remember like the like how you don't have to get too personal, but like was that like because in this film it's sort of like this relationship's over, right? This is what we're learning in the film, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
was it similar to you to that experience, or you obviously you dramatized it a little bit, I guess, right?
Yes, I would say that it's kind of a it was based on that initial finding that I came across, but it turned into a sort of a conglomeration of multiple stories that I've heard from other female actresses that have had relationships as well as my own. In terms of like that self-tape was at the end of my actual relationship, no, it staggered on for a little while longer, if that's the
Yeah.
question.
Listen,
But it,
relationships are hard. It's like you've made a commitment. It's difficult, right? So
yeah, exactly. And I really wanted to show too the unsuccessful balance between career and relationships. This is obviously an example of two people that are absolutely not making it work. It is possible, but it's very difficult. I think as an actress and as a creator, your art always comes first, and I do show that with the film as well. That she's trying to get her stuff off the ground. He is trying to get his video game thing going, and just showing how two people's motivations kind of are at odds with each other.
yeah. Well, there's a certain, like, you don't have to say how old you are, but I'm assuming you're in your 20s,
Yeah.
and basically, yeah, this is the time to be
Yes.
about you, right? Like, if there's any time, this is the time to be about you, right? Because it's, yeah, you listen, I know firsthand experience. It has to be about your art first, and the relationship second.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing too is that now you do your auditions at home. And I wanted to really show this kind of new
Yeah.
industry as of the last couple years, you don't go in anymore. Previously you would have a reader, that was their job. They would be in the room with you. You would go to your audition. And it would all be pretty professional, but now the lines are kind of blurring, and your work is really entering your home. You have to use family members or significant others or friends to be your readers. You have to do your entire setup, which I showed as well. The backdrop, I'm there like rigging like a sailor, putting up my backdrop like every 2 days, taking it down, putting it back up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it really has mixed between the home and professional as well.
What do you think about that? That shift? Because you're just starting like out and basically people have been doing this for decades. So like you can I'm assuming you can adjust quicker than someone who's been going to auditions for decades, right?
Yes. Well, that's a good question. I have some friends who are older actors who
Mhm.
are in their 40s and 50s, and it was definitely more difficult, I think, for them to transition into the whole everything is from home. For me, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think that in some ways it's good because you can be in your home, you can be comfortable. Obviously, you can do it 50 times, 100 times if you want to until you come up with that perfect performance, which
Yeah,
is great instead of just going into the room doing it once. If you screw it up, goodbye, thanks for seeing you. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But on the downside, you obviously don't get to interact personally with the
yeah.
people in
So
front of
which
you.
is good for some and bad for others.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't make that impression. You
Yeah,
can't make a real connection. You can't crack jokes, be like, I was stuck in traffic this morning
yeah,
for whatever, you can't
yeah,
do any of that. It's just your performance.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think you do lose something, and you don't know what they think about you as well. You just send it off into the ether, and if you get the job, you know that they liked you, and if you don't get the job, you have no idea. They might have liked you, but your hair wasn't blonde, so they didn't choose you. You have no idea.
idea. Yeah. And you have no, like I said, that's what I was saying in the beginning. Like you have no idea, like if they watched the whole thing, if they watched this five
Yeah,
seconds, right? Like
exactly.
you don't know anything. And that's like, and you're pouring your heart and soul, you're prepared, you're doing your text, and it's like, and then I'm sure it's good training, I guess, right? But it's like, it's not for loss, but basically you just like that feeling of like not knowing anything. That's kind of,
Yeah.
that's not good. We were talking before the podcast about positivity. That's not good mental health, one would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, the other thing is that you can be more comfortable, I suppose, in your home,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Yeah. You don't
But
have to go in traffic. You don't like,
yeah,
yeah.
you don't have to go and get stressed out or anything. But I think again, that's both a positive and a negative because sometimes as a performer, you need your blood up a little bit too. So you can get too comfortable in your house. And then it's like, I'll just do 2 takes and that one's fine. I'll send it out, whatever.
Gotcha.
So
But but this is modern professionalism, right? Like where like even people who work for me, like they all work at home, they're all freelance.
yeah,
They're that's the world that we live in, right? So like that's
yeah,
just so they have to you have to hit your game. You have to be on top of your game at home.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. And especially come on, LA, like sometimes you have to go to audition for an hour and then you wait in line for a half hour and then you're in there for 2 minutes and then you have to go back. So it's like 3 hours
Yeah,
of your day, right?
that is true. That is true. And I mean, that's why I made sure that I moved sort of central. I live in Hollywood, so I'm central to everything. And then of course everything happened to be like from home. But I'm so glad I live in Hollywood because it kind of helps me stay a part of things. It's a very vibrant
Gotcha.
neighborhood.
That said, everything's a long ways away in LA. You have to
Yeah,
drive somewhere, right? So,
that is true. That is true.
okay, so I love this like it's one shot, right? You did it in one shot.
Yeah.
So the editing was good.
Yeah, but there was the way I wanted to do it was found footage, like
Yep.
like you said. So I had John Cody come in, and it was only me, John, and Judith, my producer, who were here in my apartment. It happened. We shot in the place that it actually happened. I put my setup exactly where it was, and yes, it was scripted. I did write it, but I made sure that everything happened in a certain way, sort of like a play. And yes, everything was happening in real time. So the video game sounds and the controller and him throwing the papers, yeah, it was all in one take.
Yeah, he did a good. So he did a good job too. Like he
Yeah.
gave you something to work with, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, he's a phenomenal actor. I've used him several times in my productions. Yeah, John's great.
So you're an actor first, and then director, writer second. Is that how you would lead?
Um, I don't know. I would say that it's pretty equal. It's like
Okay.
50, 50, 50. Because I've been a writer for a very, very, very long time. Since I was a kid. My dad was a writer. We would do like poetry readings when I was like 5. So I've been writing for a very long time. I've been acting since I was like 13. So I would say they're about the same in terms of weight. I enjoy both so much, and I enjoy filmmaking as well. Very inspired by classic film. For this one, definitely the new wave and the French new wave, cinema verite. I was very inspired by that. So, and these are films that I grew up with. So,
So
yeah,
for this particular film, how many takes did you do?
3.
3 take. Wow, that's pretty good. Which one did you use?
Second one.
That that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Because after the
first
third take, you're probably like the second take, I got it. So
Yeah, I would say like uh, there's a happy medium between doing it too many times
yeah,
and doing it too few. And it depending on the filmmaker, some Hitchcock, for example, he would do very few takes and give very little direction. So you just had to show up and be prepared. And do your thing. And he gave very little direction, did very few takes. Other people, other directors try to wear you down as an actor, and they do, you know, hundreds of takes until they get the perfect one. Like Kubrick, for example, would do like 100 takes,
yeah.
poor actors would be like, by the end, complete breakdowns by the end of it, but he got what he wanted. Just depends on the filmmaker, I would say. But yes, I did 3 and I chose take 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like Eastwood's like that too, right? Where like he'll do like 1 or 2 takes. It's funny, the actor's kind of perspective. Woody Allen was the same way, where like they would just do very quick takes, and then yeah, like Scorsese or the Legend of Kubrick, you don't get going until take 15, I guess, right? So
Yeah.
that said, Warren Beatty, who was an actor, he would do 40 takes, but because he was just looking for nuance in each take, and he would have 3 different cameras going on, and then like in editing, he could find little tidbits here and there going on, right? He's
Yeah.
manipulating the performance. So
Yeah. No, absolutely. I also I may have done more, but I was a little bit low on my budget for this, so I wasn't paying poor John or Judith. So I was like, I can't keep them here for too
oh,
long.
that's amazing. You probably like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So was everything in the text, was there anything improvised, or did you just like, because it's an 8-minute monologue, right? Really. So
Yeah.
was it like everything that you wrote and you said, or did you kind of like improvise a little bit? I'm just curious of the process.
Yeah. Most of it was scripted. There was a bit of improvisation when I went off camera, and was telling him to like stop packing his bags, in that long shot of just the background with me off camera. I maybe added 3 words, but I'm kind of a stickler. As a writer, I really like no improvisation. I prefer if actors stick to the script, and that goes for me as well when I act in my own work. Because the writing process takes so long, I get to know my characters so well. And I've thought through these lines painstakingly. And for me, I know that a lot of people, it's kind of an issue, I think, in film. A lot of, I don't think writers get the credit they deserve. I think there's a disrespect, actually, a little bit towards writers. Um, and it's like, whatever they do, like it's not important. I think it is the most important thing. I think the writers are the most important part of the process, possibly even more than the director, because they build the world. If there are no writers, you have nothing. So yeah, I stuck to the script pretty closely.
So you did the take. What did you do in post production? Like in terms of like, did you clean up the sound? Did you do like a sound design? I'm just curious, like what else did you do besides the found footage?
Um, I didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything.
No, I wanted it to be exactly how a self tape is.
Yeah, because
So
it
I
feels that way. I didn't know if that was you did that in editing, or it just that's the way it is. Yeah.
No, that's exactly the way it is. I was not mic'd. John was not mic'd. We
Yeah.
shot with an iPhone 15 on a tripod in front of the exact setup that was in the original self-tape argument.
Mm.
And like I said, I did it like a play. So one take, it was all done in real time, as if it were really happening. He was truly sitting off camera. That's why he sounds far away. He was farther away. The video game noises were going on at exactly the time that they were really happening. I didn't do any sound cleanup, no boom, no mics, no editing.
Wow, that's pretty good. And then you just had the film. Soon as you look at take two, you had the film.
I did a little bit of like color correction in
Sure.
Premiere Pro. I did like a tiny like wash over the sound just to make sure that it sounded professional and that it would work in a theater because it's had screenings before. So other than that, yeah, I didn't do anything.
And so what did you think we sent the audience to you? What did you think of what the audience had to say about your film?
I thought it was very interesting. I really loved the feedback. I love hearing feedback about my work, you know. It helps my ego, first of all. But second of all, it also I think it can tell a lot about a project. And I really thought that the people that responded to it got what I was doing, which I was very happy about. But it has been, I would say, possibly misunderstood as well by people. I had a screening here in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, and it was very interesting. There were a few people who laughed, and I turned around and they were men. And it was so interesting to me. Like the, I know, right? Like the women in the audience were stone faced,
Yeah.
and there were like 3 to 5 men who laughed, especially at the beginning with the video game part, like,
Yeah.
like relatable, like what a bitch, like I'm trying to play my game. Like it was very interesting. There were some laughs, which I was not expecting, which I found fascinating. But the feedback video from Toronto, that was definitely more like, I think they understood it a little bit more. And so I was very happy about that. But I love to have feedback that I'm expecting. And I love to have feedback that I'm not expecting as well.
Yeah, well, no, obviously that's interesting because I don't want to deep dive into these guys, but like obviously they're looking at the men's perspective and they're gonna, even though he's not on frame and he's
Yeah.
the dick, he basically
Yeah.
with him, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, I am biased in the situation, which I recognize. Like, it's based on a real argument, and I was in that argument. Of
Yeah,
course, I'm going to be biased towards the woman's perspective.
yeah,
But I try to have, um, you know, bring some humanity to him. I
yeah,
like to see both sides of
sure.
the coin, on everything. I grew up in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and I
Mhm.
grew up in a bad neighborhood, but I went to school in the richest neighborhood in San Francisco. So I've always kind of had this dichotomy. My personality probably contributed to my wanting to be an artist, an actor, and a writer.
Yeah,
Professions that I think try to understand as many perspectives and master them as much as
yeah,
possible.
yeah, 100%. It's like there's the bigger picture is that he's had it with her art, right? Like he's like he wants a relationship, and that's what it's about. This is about your character being like this is what she has to do. This is her passion, and it may look silly, but you have to respect me. And then basically, if you don't respect what I'm doing, then you don't respect me. So like,
Exactly.
right? And so that's the relationship right there. Like usually maybe a year, maybe 2 years go by, but you know what I mean? Like that's when things end. And things don't end when they end, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally,
Yeah,
totally. I mean,
right.
I think that the crux of it is they don't respect each other, and that is the damnation of any relationship, is when you
Yeah.
lose respect for each other.
So now if your film was a TV show, you would basically, and you're an actor, you would basically, the argument would lead to the emotional, whatever that's happening in the scene. You would do your audition tape, and because what you just experienced, you would get the role,
Yeah,
right? That's what happened on
absolutely.
TV.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I
So
did
I'm assuming it didn't
realize
happen. Maybe it happened. Did it happen? Do you remember?
no. Absolutely not. I
Yeah,
mean, it was a very like I did get a call back though, funny
that's
enough.
good.
In the real story, it was a commercial. It wasn't as horrible as the one I wrote, which, you know, that was a little bit of comedy. I wrote
Yeah,
a god awful, you know, script for this poor actress to have to read, like, you know, Miss Moffat, whatever. Um, but yeah, I tried to make it as ridiculous as possible, just to show too how uh, you know, as an actor, you have to read some pretty terrible, just some really terrible auditions that are just horrible writing and
yeah.
just the worst thing, and try to make it believable and convincing and try to get into it.
That's your
Um,
job, right?
yeah, exactly. So
Be fair with the writers. There's sometimes you're missing context, right? In the scene.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. And yeah, at the time but it was a very enthusiastic commercial audition, in real life, and having an argument and then have to like bring yourself out of it immediately after, and try to be upbeat for a commercial. It was a challenge for sure.
Well, it seems like this film's getting some play, and it's like a genius idea. It really is. Like when I first saw it, it's like, listen, a lot of people try to do these found footage films or mockumentaries, whatever, and they're hard because they think, oh, it's so easy to do, right? It's like, oh, I can
Yeah.
just do this, and it's like they're hard to do. But like you pulled off the great idea, which is like that's 90% from everybody's got the idea, but you pulled off the great idea. So that's like I wish the film the best of success. I really do. I think that I think it's fantastic. I really do. I really it's one of my favorites of the year so far. Because in terms of
Oh.
its execution, because for like let's just say that the film cost you $100, right?
Mhm.
For the what you spend and what the quality of the film is, it's the best film of the year. That makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. And it actually cost me
$0. Okay. But yeah, I just, but at the same time, like you're paying, like, you know what I mean? You got to do it. And like,
I
yeah,
paid for I paid for Premiere Pro for
yeah,
35.
exactly. Right. So you like, you're paying for this, like the editing software, you're paying for the camera, the phone. Right. So yeah, I know it serves other things. Right. But you can still write it off. Right. So,
Yeah. Well, my the phone belonged to my producer, Judah.
okay, there you go. All right. There you go. So it costs you $0. So before we leave you, I got to ask you, because you wrote in the blog interview, we asked you everybody what film they've seen the most in their life, and we've already established that you were born sometime in the 90s,
Yeah.
and the two films you said Casablanca and To Be or Not to Be, which To Be or Not to Be, maybe people know Casablanca, maybe people don't know that film, but there are two films in the early 40s during the war that were filmed, and one's a comedy and one's a romance, I guess drama. That's interesting. That's an interesting two films from someone born in the 90s. That's the film that you've seen the most times in your life.
Yeah. I like as I said, I grew up watching classic film. It was something that I was raised with. My parents were very into it. They were artists as well. And it's just something that I really, really connected with. I'm not sure why. Perhaps I'm just an old soul. But I just loved the rawness. And I know that a lot of people think of it as old movies as kind of fakey. But I don't view that at all. I view it as respecting film itself. If you want to be an actress or a writer or a director or producer, I think you do need to somewhat educate yourself in where it all started, you know? And for me, it's just it is my heart and my soul. And you know, these people, they worked for decades in vaudeville and the Catskills
Yeah.
and theater, and then they went to film. So it was so practiced. They knew the art form so well before anybody made it, and I think that that definitely contributed to how the polish of the films. Casablanca, everything is perfect. I think it is the best film ever made, in my
Oh, really?
opinion. It's always been floated around AFI's top five or around
Yeah.
there. But I think it's better than The Godfather. Like, just gonna, I know fighting words, but
Well,
I think
they're
it's
two
better,
different genres, two different times. It's like hard to compare, right? So,
I suppose, but it's better.
gotcha. No, that is 100%. Well, it will be there. It will be around forever, basically. And
Yeah.
there's so many kind of rip off or kind of like tribute films to
Yeah.
Casablanca, right? It kind of it set a tone for that kind of like romantic genre, right? So
Everything is perfect in it. The writing is perfect. The acting is spot on. The direction is perfect. There's no fat on it whatsoever. It's a perfect film. Whereas The Godfather is a little bloated. I'm gonna say it.
well, you can argue the second one's better than the first one, right? Because it's got the father son, I know, done to death in film, but it's the best father son movie, kind of parallel stories, same age.
I
The
think
second one's better than the first one. So
I agree with that. I'll give you that. That's true.
yeah, the first one just had this certain touch that it defines the 70s, right? That people never saw before. Kind of it set up a new tone to how to make films. So yeah.
No
So
way. I mean, I prefer Mean Streets if you or Taxi Driver for the tone of the 70s.
yeah, but it's a different, yeah, it's more grand, it's more epic, right? It's sort of like the Ben-Hur of those type of movies, right? Where like Mean Streets and Taxi Driver are about individual kind of like moments in New
Yeah.
York City, right? So yeah. Taxi Driver is one of my favorites. I think it's a genius film. I just watched it the other day. It's on Netflix now. So
Oh, is it? Oh, I missed
yeah.
that.
Yeah, take
Okay.
a gander at it if you haven't seen it in a while. It still holds up. It's still there's a lot of similarities. It's pretty funny. You think that we evolve as humans, but you watch
Yeah.
these movies in the 70s and like we're still in the same spot. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, you see it in classic film too. There are things that you are able to resonate with. Definitely not the transatlantic dialect, but there are themes and uh, everything else that you can definitely relate to. So
yeah. So yeah, take a look at like that Taxi Driver if you
it
can.
has been a while since I've seen it, so
The
I'd love to watch
genius
it.
Albert Brooks kind of is in two scenes, and it's like he doesn't belong in the film. It's like what's he doing there? But it's like it's so good. So
Yeah.
all right,
That's
thank you so much. Well, let's talk soon. Make your next film. I'd love to see what you do next. I think that you're onto something. You see you have a pretty established body of work already, so you're just starting. So keep in touch. Let's talk again when you make your next film.
great. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Thanks.